Welcome everybody to Generation Hope. It's my privilege to say that we're going to be interviewing today Vicki Wusche. Now, how I met Vicki, it was incredible. I was on a property seminar and she came to speak, and I was blown away, not so much by all of her knowledge at that time, because I knew very little, but by her passion. And as it transpired, a couple of months passed after I'd heard her give her testimony, which I just thought was powerful. And I dropped her an email and said, look, I need someone to help teach me more about properties, which is an area that I'm positive about and really passionate about. So I asked her, I dropped her an email out of the blue. I found her email and said, look, will you help me? And she emailed back and said yes. So that's really how our journey begins. You know, she plays a big part in a property I've only just recently bought. So hopefully you'll find this interview very, very valuable, because her story has definitely inspired me. Okay. Vicki, thank you once again for your time. What I'd like to do to start off with is, obviously for the viewers of Gen Hope, to get an understanding of who you are, where you come from and where you are now.
Yep.
If you could do that for me, that'd be brilliant.
Okay, so if we go way back, at primary school I was considered a naughty kid.
Yeah.
I asked too many questions, put my hands up too often, talked too much, and my dad found my school reports and they are just full of Vicki talks too much, she doesn't concentrate on her work, all that sort of stuff. Actually, some of the qualities that you'd want in someone who was going to be a successful business person.
Yeah.
Asking questions, inquisitive, communicating, but actually that doesn't fit with what we want when we've got 30 kids in a class and we just need them to sit there and be quiet.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to secondary school, the talking got me into trouble, because I was very much, well, this is who I am. I never saw myself as different.
Yeah.
But obviously the other kids did, and I was bullied to the point where I think it was about a 3-year period where none of the girls at school spoke to me. So I made my friends outside of school.
Yeah.
And then, you know, poodled through life as you do, having various different little jobs. And then when I got married, that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
The highlights were my 2 daughters,
Yeah.
but the lowlights were what turned into a more verbally abusive than physically abusive relationship, but it ended up being physically abusive.
Yeah. Okay.
And I left with 2 daughters, one just about 1.5, one not quite 3,
Yeah.
in my car with just what we could take with us, and moved into the back room of my parents' house. Actually in the back room I had to walk through my parents' bedroom to get to the bedroom,
Your bedroom
that I lived with the girls, and I had a double bed with my older daughter slept in the double bed with me, and my basically baby daughter slept in a put-up cot, not a travel cot.
Oh, okay, like a Moses basket.
Yeah, by the side of the bed.
Yeah.
And it just fit in the space, and I used to have to climb off the end of the bed to get out of bed in the morning, and stayed there. But we were only there for about a month, sort of getting over all the trauma and the changes you do, when I was already thinking about how's my life going to be. I can't live in my parents' back bedroom forever. You know, I've got to do something. How can I find a home for myself, and not only a home for myself and the girls, but also what else can we do?
Yeah.
So I went to the council. I was very fortunate, and we're going to talk about labels at some point. So then I became, I claimed benefits, and I got given a house that was owned by a landlord. So I rented property from him. I got housing benefits. I was a housing benefit claimant, social housing. And I started to look for, what should I do? Should I do a job? Now, a job, there's nothing wrong with having a job with children, but it was what could I do and how much could I earn, because I needed to put the children into nursing care, because my mum also worked at the time. And so actually what I looked at was education. If I took this opportunity to go back to education and learn things, maybe retrain as something, I would be able to put the girls in the nursery at the university. And I don't know if it's still the same now, but I paid, but I didn't have to pay as much, because it was all, funded.
Huge obstacles, wasn't it?
Huge
obstacles.
Yeah, I think the thing is, and I don't think it's just looking back with hindsight, I don't recall seeing them as obstacles.
Yeah.
I didn't have that as a word. right, what am I going to do now? Okay,
Yeah.
head down. What am I going to do now? Right, what's the next thing? Now, what am I going to do now? And just keep going. And probably within 6 months of the relationship breaking up, I was in this housing association house. I was in university. The girls were in nursery. It was a bit of a challenge because Charlie was a bit too young at the time. But they were in nursery and I was studying a degree. Fantastic. And I was sort of like one of the older ones in university because they were all fresh out of college, and there I was in my mid-late 20s going back. Couldn't have been more different to the people in my class. The majority, as I say, were just kids, and there I was. I've been through a marriage, I was going through a divorce, I had 2 children, and our life experience was different.
I'm going to say, all those things right there, breakdown in the marriage, you know, leaving your home, all these things would have almost stopped a lot of people in their tracks. What allowed you to keep going? And we'll talk about where that keep going has got you to. But what was that thing that allowed you to keep going? When a lot of people would have said, that is it, I'm out, I've had my lot, I can't continue with this.
What would that look like? What would it look like if you just went, okay? Would I still 15 years be later sleeping all in the same bed in the back bedroom of my parents? I don't know. There was no alternative but to keep going. So when your back was on the wall, you're like, I can't go backwards, I can only go forward. Absolutely. There was nowhere else to go other than forward. What's the next thing I need to do? And I don't know if you've ever studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He did this research and he said the bottom line that everybody needs is they need somewhere to live and they need some food. And once they've got that, they don't think of the next thing. And once they've got that, they think of the next thing. And that's what it was like. I didn't have a home for me and the girls. Obviously, I could have stayed with my parents. My parents would have kept us for 15, well, maybe not 15 years. They might have got tired of it by then. But you know, they would have kept us for as long as we needed. But I needed a home for us. All I ever wanted to do was be the best. I think all I've ever wanted to do is be the best that I can be at whatever I am committed to at that time. And I wanted to be the best mother I could. And a mother provides a home for her children and provides food for her children. And then, for me, becomes a role model for her children, because, especially as I had girls, how were the girls going to learn to be young girls, young women, grown-up women, if not by observing the women around them? And I wanted to be... So you wanted to be that role model and not the world, Rihanna, or... Say, I want to be the role model. It wasn't so much I wanted to be the role model to the exclusion of everybody else, but I just thought, I am their role model because I am the first female they're going to see. And then it'll be their grandmother and their aunt and then their teachers and... It'll move out from there in sort of circles. Obviously, as we've been talking, you've mentioned, you know, some labels that people could, you know, that people are stigmatised with, like single mom, being on benefits, bullied. Can you just talk about that a little bit more? Because I think a lot of people, this will resonate with a lot of people at home or people who are viewers are watching this. You can just discuss that about having these labels and maybe not accepting these labels potentially. I think it's really important to recognise that you will have labels, whether you know them consciously or unconsciously. There will be labels, and there'll be labels that have come from your parents when you were younger, from school, from employers, from partners, from friends even. Just even simple words like, oh, you're stupid, or you're clumsy. And then there's the more, I think, insidious ones like, oh, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never be rich, you'll never be successful. Teachers saying things to children like, You'll never be successful, you'll never get a job. You know, you're this, you're that. Who is anyone to tell you who you are, is I suppose the first thing. So start to become aware of the labels that maybe you accidentally use with other people, but also that people are either giving to you currently or have given to you in the past, and think, does this serve me? Is this how I want to be known? Because the trouble is, especially the ones that you picked out, words like single mother, oh okay, so that's the second drawer of the filing cabinet, 3 tabs back. That's it. Unemployed, well, that's bound to be the 4th drawer of the filing cabinet, you know, round about P or Q at the end there somewhere. So if these labels are negative or limiting or disempower you in any way, then just choose not to accept it. that might be what you choose to call me.
Yeah.
That's not how I see myself.
Yeah.
And I did this as an exercise when I was doing some personal development, and I was just so not aware of all the labels that had been given me through my marriage, through school, and through everything. And that when we started to do this exercise, it was supposed to be an exercise about something like I'm a woman, I'm blonde, and then I was supposed to spiral upwards and upwards and get better and better and recognise how wonderful I was until I was a child of God or a being of the universe or something wonderful. And when I started to say the words, I spiraled down, and more of these nasty words came out, and it was deeply emotional. But once they came out, and I recognised that they weren't things that I'd said to me, they weren't things that were said to me in love, I could let them go. And then I recognised that actually the only label I want is I am Vicki.
Yeah.
You know?
That's who you
and whoever Vicki is whoever Vicki chooses to be at that time. Yeah. That sounds like I'm talking about myself in the third person.
That's
But
fine.
what I'm saying is that I am Vicki, and I can be whatever I choose to make of myself. And sometimes I have been making myself the best mother I can be. Sometimes I've been making myself the best student I can be. Sometimes I've been the best employee I could be. And now I'm being the best partner I can be for Bob. And those are the labels that I choose for myself. And they help me and they move me along. They don't limit me and put me in a box.
And the great thing about that is that you can do that, or whoever's watching this can do that now.
Yes.
And say whatever you've been stigmatised with for the last 20, 30 years, is to say, that's enough.
Yeah.
Who I am is this. I am
whoever
Denzel,
you want to be.
I am Vicki, and that is associated with being this. So that's something people can do right now.
Yes.
So that's brilliant. And what can they see now? So obviously we know where you've come from, somewhat in a snapshot, but what are you now? What is who is Vicki now? What's the world?
Depends who you ask, really, doesn't it? I think if we asked Bob, my other half, hopefully he'd say I'm a good partner and a good dive buddy, but I actually know the reality is he'd say that I'm probably high maintenance and he never knows where I am when we're scuba diving. I'd like to think if you ask my daughters, they'd say I was a good mother and a role model. They'd probably say that, you know, I'm demanding and naggy and picky and you know, as a mother should be. I picked my daughter up at the airport and dropped her back to the house, and one of my passing comments was, as I walked past her bedroom, was, tidied in there for a while.
So you're still the mom. I'm still the mom. She
said to me, I emptied out the case in a hurry so that I could repack to give you the dirty clothes to send home. Yeah, whatever. I think if we sort of take the context of how maybe the world would see me, is that I am a property investor. I think that I'm more than a property investor, because a property investor just buys houses, and I see myself as a property business owner. It's a bigger umbrella, and under my umbrella of being a property business owner, I buy houses for myself, I source houses for clients, I work with bespoke clients that have cash, that recognise they're not getting interest in the bank, and I can help them build their financial security and financial freedom. I work with people who want to be better themselves, so I coach people. I work with people through training courses, and I've written books. So I think you can add author of 2 books in there now.
And obviously one of the things that I was intrigued by as well is that, you know, we use this term, you're financially free, which is something that bands around the world, and it's everything that, but you are now financially free. And let's discuss, what does that mean?
Yes.
You know, because everyone uses it, but what does it mean to be financially free?
Well, I think it's going to take on a different meaning for everybody. But for me, it's the freedom part of the sentence that's more important. It's not that I have £1 million or even how many houses I own. That's not what's important. It's the fact that I am in a position where I don't have to work. The sheer fact that you're sitting in an office that I've built means that I do work.
Very nice, by the way. Very nice.
Do you like the colours of the wall?
I do.
But I do work, and I do work very long hours. And I remember saying to someone the other day, I don't work, and then I added up how long I'd been sitting in this chair, and it was, 60 hours in a week. But it doesn't feel like work because I can choose to.
So this is the thing. So a lot of people, it's a misconception, is that I'm going to get loads of money, I'm going to have financial freedom where I don't have to work, and I'm going to stop working, I'm just going to live the late, I'm going to get my nails done, get my hair done, play golf, But you're still working.
Well, there's two things there, isn't
Yeah.
there? It depends how much money you want.
Yeah.
And often you'll hear people when they go and they talk about wealth or being rich, they talk in the millions.
Yeah.
And if you want money in the millions, you will have to work hard. You will have to work 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
I don't have to work 60 hours a week, I choose to.
Yeah.
A lot of the time is writing blogs or writing a book or working with coaching clients, but I choose to do that. I also choose who I work with.
Yeah.
I choose
That's
who I
nice thing to
coach.
do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I didn't like you, you know,
It's not
I
gonna
don't really
happen.
care what you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
Because what's more important is my time.
Yeah.
You can always get money. Denzel, could you lend me £10?
Yeah.
If you had the £10 and if you felt
I would
inclined,
gladly
you would
lend
lend me
it
the
to you.
£10.
Yeah.
So I could ask people for money.
Yeah.
And as long as you ask in the right way for the right reason, people will give you money.
Yeah.
Denzel, can you give me an hour?
Yeah.
No, you can give me your hour,
Yeah.
an hour of your time, but you can't give me an hour.
Yeah.
My life expectancy won't go, oh, you're going to die on such and such a day at such and such a time, now you'll die an hour later. Because you can't slot an hour into your time. You only have that dash.
Yeah.
And the dash is between the date on your birth certificate and the date on your death certificate. That's all you've got, however long or however short it is. A traditional job in the way that we think of a job, or it could even be getting out of debt and unemployment.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people would want financial freedom outside of their debt. So I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
get out of debt and I want to just pay my mortgage,
Sure.
and just take care of my kids.
But then that's the number to look for, isn't
Yeah.
it? And that's what I work with my clients. So how much do you need to earn?
Yeah.
Not want to earn,
Yeah.
need to earn to pay your mortgage or your rent, your bills, your food,
Yeah.
put shoes on your kids' feet, and you know, have a car if that's what you need
Yeah.
for transport, or
Yeah.
pay your train fare or whatever. And I bet you for ordinary people like us, and we're just ordinary people,
Very much so.
it's somewhere between 1,500 and
It's
2,500.
not a huge amount of money.
Absolutely
It's
not.
That's achievable.
And I think if it's more than that, have a look at what you're spending on
Yeah.
and wonder, you know, how many gym memberships you're not going to,
Yeah.
how many magazines you subscribe to.
Something that really resonates with me, and probably one of the reasons why I actually set up Generation Hope, was because of the lack of, I'll call it financial literacy, and you can explain that a little bit more so people understand what we mean. But whether you're in a church, whether you're in a business, whether you're in a charity, it doesn't matter. Everybody needs money. And I think, you know, a lot of people that I meet in the school system, my family, you know, people, whatever it is, everybody's got this blasé thing, I don't need to understand it. But could you just, I don't know, somehow summarise the importance of having some form of financial literacy, especially in these times right now?
Well, it depends what you think money is.
Yeah.
You know, money is a piece of paper that we can pass backwards and forwards between one another as a way to not carry two chickens and exchange two chickens for a goat, which is going to be a little bit inconvenient, you know, even if you've got a car.
Yeah.
So it's just this easy way of saying, this is, you know, of the same value as two chickens, and your piece of paper is the same value, and instead of the actual physicals, we're changing the paper. But it's more complicated than that, depending on where you think. You can also think of it as an energy.
Yeah.
And if you think of it as an energy force and something that has to keep moving, something that's living, something that needs energy, takes energy, gives energy, as long as it keeps moving, it's brilliant. Then there's a whole line of thinking around that. But actually, let's just take it back down to basics.
Yeah.
And financial education, financial literacy is not taught in schools.
Yeah.
And yet it affects everybody's life at all aspects of their life. From whether you want to buy something for yourself, whether you want to live in a house, whether you get a job and you get given money, or whether you receive benefits. We need to understand where this paper comes from, or this promise of money comes from, how to get it, how to make it work for us, rather than making us work for it.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of really brilliant books, and I know that you'll sort of explain these a bit better. They're written by a guy called Kiyosaki. This is a very old and tatty version of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was one of his first books, and this explains to you about how you can either be an employee, a business owner, an investor, or self-employed, and it explains to you the things that they don't teach you about in school. And then just to show you, because this is one of his more recent books, this is The Unfair Advantage, again by Robert Kiyosaki. And Denzel, if you'll just put up those titles so if you want to get them.
Definitely, we'll put that at the bottom of the screen.
They're easy on eBay to pick up, and you can get them in audios as well if you want. But a couple of the things that he talks about in there, the difference between an asset and a liability. And these are words that we don't have in general education or in general conversation. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. If you think of it as the Asda advert, you know, when they lean over and they pat the back pocket, Asda, an asset, that's what an asset is. It puts money in your back pocket. And a liability is something that you have to pay for. And so our world is built on admiring what I consider to be the liabilities. We want the fancy shoes, the fancy watches, we want the Lamborghinis and the big houses, but all of those things are liabilities. They have to be paid for. And if you don't have a business that works for you, or like you and I, if you're not into property investing, so you have this regular passive income that comes forward, you will have to work to own those things. And you'll have to work so hard to earn those things, you won't have the time to enjoy those things. Well, that seems to be a silly cycle to get into. And
that's almost like the rat race, isn't it?
Yeah, very much the rat race, which is another one of the terms that Robert also uses. The other thing is we look at our houses and everybody wants to have a house. And they want to own their own home because they think it's an asset. It's not an asset if you're paying the mortgage. And bear in mind somebody has to be paying the mortgage. But you can set it up in a way that it can be part of your business, so that you have maybe 2 smaller houses and a tenant lives in one property, and the profit from that pays for the mortgage on your property, so you effectively live mortgage free.
So you can do that
makes it an asset. Yes. Well, easily if you learn the things that we learn, if you read the books that we read, but if you understand and learn how money works. And I know a lot of the stuff in the paper is all doom and gloom and Greece and everything else, but understanding that there is all of this money, all of this debt in the world, how it's lent to one another, how banks make money, how they want you to borrow money, how to use credit cards. And if you want, I'll give you the link to an ebook that I've written about credit cards, about understanding that buying something in a sale because it's 20% off, and then buying it on a credit card that charges you 29% and not clearing that debt means that actually you will have paid more for it than if you saved up and bought it at full price in a month's time.
That's it. That's a good point. It's a very good point.
And it is a bit about knowing the maths, but you don't have to actually do the calculations if you understand the concepts. And it's not taught to you at school, but you can read about it, you can learn about it, and it's a really, really important lesson, whether you want to, as you say, run a charity, be part of a church, have a job, or set up your own business.
Especially in these times.
Absolutely.
More so than ever before, you understanding financial literacy.
Absolutely.
So that's brilliant. So we talked about the books. I know the first book that you put up, that was one of the books I read, and that had started me on this journey to securing my own financial security.
See, I didn't come to that till much later. So it doesn't really matter. Don't let the book be another thing that limits you. But read the book.
That's a brilliant question I was going to ask you is, because obviously people will be asking, well, we know you came from point A and now you're at point B, that's great. How did you do it? But I think the one thing I want to clear up, there was no magical wand, was there?
No.
That's all I said. Right, Vicky, you're the lucky one. Lady Luck is on your side, and I'm going to give you this life now. Financial freedom from having nothing. Okay. What were some of the key things that you had to do that maybe other people can do that are watching this video for them to get their financial freedom, whether that be £500, £1,000, whatever it may be? What could they do that you did to almost achieve some of the success that you've had? Unless you're just a lucky person. Obviously we can't transfer that.
Well, I do think there is a certain amount of luck. But what I actually think luck is spotting opportunities. So there's almost two parts to this question. The first part is, whatever situation you're in now, what can you do? And the easy thing is just switch off the telly, stop reading the papers for a minute, put your head down, and even if you're in a partnership, do it on your own first off. Put your head down and go, where am I? Where am I and where do I want to get to? And where you want to get to at different times in your life will be further down the line, different places. I mean, when I was first in my parents' back bedroom, all I wanted to get to was being a good mum for my kids. And what does that mean to me? It means getting them somewhere to live, so they've got their own bedroom, and being able to put food on the plate. That's as big as my world was for that time. And as soon as I've got it, or got close to it, what's the next thing I want? Now I want to be a good role model. What does that mean? Shall I work? Shall I go to education? What do I have to do to get that? Head down. What do I have to do? I have to apply for a course because I've looked at education, it's not going to work for me at the moment. Sorry, employment's not going to work for me at the moment. I'm choosing the education route. What do I have to do to get to university? I have to know when it starts, I have to know how to pay, what grants to apply for. Next job. And now I'm about to graduate from university. And while I was at university, I wanted to be the best student I could be.
Definitely,
And then when I got to the end of starting to graduate, what do I want to do now? Now I want to get a job. What job can I get? What do I know? What resources have I got? How can I leverage those? What can I do next? So there's always that head down. When you get to the stage where you're relatively sorted, so you've got a stable living environment, you've got money that will feed you, however that comes in. And this can even work for people who are on benefits right now, because when you're on benefits, you have got accommodation and you have got some money that are paying you food. Well, now you're at the next stage. You can then go,
good point.
I've met my basic needs. What do I want now? How do I want my life to be? And I never wanted my life to be about Tupperware parties and watching daytime telly. You know, I just felt there were more things to learn, more things to do. I think there's also a responsibility that I've got something to contribute as well as to take.
Give something back.
And that's not give something back, because I think the way you're giving back is in that maybe more charitable sense. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about an exchange. I'm on this planet. I drive on the roads. I use the lights in the street. My bins get emptied. That happens for me, and the hospitals are provided for me, and the schools are provided for me, and the police are provided for me. How do I be part of this community and give something back? Well, in my case, it's work and pay taxes. Now, I have choice about what work I do, because I could work in a job, and there are lots of people who are really happy. My partner Bob has the choice not to work. His work drives him mad at times, frustrates him, but actually gives him what he likes, which is structure and stability, and he wants that.
Fantastic,
Why force someone to be miserable? And give that up if that's what they enjoy? I like to make my own structure and stability. I like a bit more challenge there. I like to have to get out of bed. I have to make myself get out of bed.
So obviously at the moment, because a lot of people, you know, will look at the doom and gloom that's around and everything that's going on and say, yes, but I know you've got that success now, so it's good for you now. What would you say to people, just in closing, that are saying to themselves, I mean, it's awful dilemma, whether that be on benefits, which you've mentioned, I'm a single mom, you know, whatever it may be. What are the things they should be doing now? Because you talked about focus as one. Was there anything else they can take away from this video and say, right, you know, I've listened to, you know, Vicki, you know, what I'm going to do right now to start my journey to whether that be financial success or just their destiny, their purpose. Whatever it may, because this is not about money, but it's about them living their purpose. What would you say to them with all that's going on? Because it is quite depressing. You know, and I want to be able to show people that people are still making it, you're still very successful in the midst of all that's going on, and you're an ordinary person. So what advice would you give?
I think there's two things to say. One, my financial freedom came between August 2008 and November 2009. That's the point at which I became financially free. And that's a period of unsettled economic times like we have now. And I would say possibly bigger unsettled economic times because it was all new. We've been through this economic crisis for 3 years now. It's almost like an old story. So stop reading the newspaper and the doom and the gloom for the sensationalism that's there and the woe is me and the, you know, everything is over aspect that it gives you. Be aware of what's going on in the news, because that's interesting to look at the money.
Yeah.
Learn how money works, because I think whatever you choose to do, whether it's charitable or whether it's working for somebody or working for yourself, understanding how this currency, this energy works is really interesting.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing is, and I mentioned it about that, how do I give back? How do I play a part in this community? That comes from my belief about responsibility.
Yeah.
I can only be responsible for my life.
Yeah.
I can't influence, well I can probably influence your decisions, but I can't make your decisions for you.
Yeah.
I can't make any decisions for the people that are watching this video.
Yeah.
I can only manage my life.
Yeah.
If I make a good decision, my life will improve and I will be happy with my life.
Yeah.
If I make a less good decision or even a bad decision, then that might have a negative consequence.
Yeah.
That's just an opportunity to learn. So I probably can't swear, but you know, when the messy stuff happens, what have you learned?
Yeah.
Don't do what caused the messy stuff to happen again.
Yeah.
Find out how to make that decision better. So that's what taking responsibility is, looking at making the best decision you can with the advice of the right people that are around you, time and time again. And when you make a mistake, and we all make mistakes, I've made mistakes, look at what decision led up to that and look at how you can make a better decision in future. What piece of information didn't you have? And then focus on what you want, not what the media says you need to have. Work out what you've got and how to make the best of it, leverage it, and then just get on and do it.
I love that. I love that. Sounds very simple.
It is.
It is very simple, isn't it? And as a final point, there was something that really touched me. We were talking earlier before we started this interview, and because I'm a parent, how your success now has actually rubbed off on, I believe it was Kimberly.
Yeah.
Just briefly, if you could just tell us about that. I think that's a brilliant thing to share, especially those who've got kids.
Okay. Well, according to the papers, the average age of someone buying their first home now is going to be 35 to 39.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Kimberly, her boyfriend Chris, or I read that article until afterwards. 22, she and Chris have moved into their own new home.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a property investor and I know about that stuff, there was no money from the bank and mum and dad. After years of talking, eventually, because you give all this advice to your kids when they're not ready for it. She and Chris came to me and said that they wanted to start buying a house. What do they need to do? So I told them about the Excel spreadsheet. How much money do they need to live? If you don't know that, you haven't got the fundamentals already. So they worked out what they needed to live. They worked out how much the electricity would cost. They then went and saw how much they could afford to borrow. Now, it's all right, a broker telling you how much you can afford to borrow. You then need to put it back in your spreadsheet and see if you can really afford to borrow it. And then they worked out where could they live. So they worked out going around here in sort of semicircles and circles, what area could they afford to live in. Found the area that they could afford to live in based on what they could afford to borrow. Then worked out what they had to save and then set about saving it.
That's it. So the great thing is you've instilled, your knowledge, your beliefs now, and they've taken them on board, and which is bringing about their own success. And now this is becoming like generational success. So and you can start that regardless where you are now. That generational thing doesn't have to follow of poverty or living at mom and dad or being on benefits. You can change that.
Absolutely.
So that's brilliant. So thank you very much for your time, Vicki. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you. So I just really wanted to bring this to some kind of conclusion. From this interview, hopefully you've seen that it's not where you start but how you finish. You've seen from Vicki's life that she was on benefits, council house, was living at her parents, but that didn't define who she was and who she's become. So for anyone watching this, regardless of your situation, that doesn't have to determine your end. The other thing I wanted to really discuss is look at where you're at. Take your head out of the sand and say, this is where I'm at, and get focused. What do I need to do today, this year? Okay. The third thing that I really want to emphasize is that your financial freedom, as you mentioned today, is different to what the world's telling you. It doesn't have to be financial freedom when you drive a Lamborghini. It could be £600 a month, £2,000 a month. You've got to figure that out for yourself. So we hope that you've enjoyed the video, and we'll see you soon. Thanks very much.